everyone. Good morning. On behalf of Reed Exhibitions, I would like to welcome you all to India Warehousing Show Digital Week, where you can network and connect with leading brands in warehousing and logistics sector, who are the industry drivers at the comfort of your home and office. A 5-day event starting from today, comprising of e-conference, product showcase, launches, business matchmaking, and virtual expo. Thank you for taking out time and being here today. I would also like to thank all my speakers and dignitaries for taking out time to share insights. Now, I would like to introduce the topic of first webinar today, a bold vision for supply chain 2030, automation, the game changer. Are we ready for it? I'm pleased to introduce the moderator of our session, Mr. Manjunath SR, Head of Supply Chain and Logistics Solutions, JLL India. Manjunath has close to 2 decades of experience in supply chain and logistics. He leads various strategic and transformation projects as a consultant, 3PL service provider, IT, and as an end user. He currently heads supply chain and logistics solutions for JLL India Logistics and Industrial Business. Recorded version of this webinar will be available on the platform. Now, without a further talk here, I return the time over to our moderator, Mr. Manjunath. Mr. Manjunath, over to you.
Thanks, Rima, for the introduction. I am honored to moderate this session with many industry veterans from multi-sector and domains, especially during this time as we have just crossed 30 years of Indian economic reform, starting with budget speech in July 24, 1991, and also the political volatility around the globe, right? So let me quickly introduce our panelists. We have distinguished panelists to discuss this hot topic, a bold vision for supply chain 2030. We have Ms. Prerna Soni, VP, Invest India, Ministry of Commerce and Industries. We are waiting for Mr. Vikas Chobe, Secretary Logistics, Ministry of Commerce and Industries. He might join anytime. From product side of the business, we have Senthil Kumar, National Manager, Supply Chain Transformation, Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages. Mr. Manish Gupta, AGM and Division Head, Spare Part Logistics, Honda Cars. From retail, we have Mr. Swaminathan, Chief Supply Chain Officer, Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail. From automations and technology, we have Mr. Pranav, Director, XNG Automation. Mr. Ajay Mishra, Country Sales Leader, Honeywell. From the technology and fulfillment side, we have Mr. Venkatesh Kumar, Managing Director, Stackbox. Mr. Vineet Sharma, CEO and Co-founder, Fleetex. Yeah. From New Age Innovation Solutions and Supply Chain and Logistics, we have Mr. Anand Balakrishna, Principal Consultant at Infosys. Yeah. A warm welcome for this great morning to our panelists, audience, and supporting members of this session. Let me quickly set the context. So all of us are going through the pandemic. So whenever I think of this situation, I remember words of Mr. Dr. Charles Darwin. He once said, it is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responds to change. Yeah. I was reading an article a couple of days back, which states that the pandemic has fast forwarded us 5 years within 1 year. Hope you all agree on this, right? We see tremendous surge in e-com business, multiple tech platforms evolved overnight. This is a huge opportunity during this digital era. The major change that COVID has brought is geography is now history. So businesses are evolving from tier 2 and tier 3 locations. Let us understand from our industry experts how they welcome this opportunity, what changes they brought in business, and what is their 2030 bold vision in supply chain. I request all of you to post your questions. We'll address them at the end of the session. Yeah, we'll start with the poll question. Tarun, can you please post the poll question, please?
Sure, sir.
First poll question. I request all the audiences, please vote your answer here. This will be setting the context for us so that we can take it up from here.
I'm just sending this to you.
Even the panelists can answer these questions.
Updated version of the agenda, and PPTs which are trending are available from students. Sound of the sound of the array, okay. आपके पास चलो ना हाँ
Karan, do we have enough answers? We don't need to wait for all of them to answer though. Great. Yeah. So about 56% says many items and about 36% says few items, and they are saying not at all. Now we know at least who bought this turbulence in supply chain, right? We can catch them later. Yeah. Let me ask our experts. Yeah, let me start with the question. So we are witnessing 2021 is turning out to be a big year for Indian startups, right? They have raised about $17 billion in the first 7 months of 2021. India has added 23 unicorns this year so far. Bangalore, the unicorn capital, followed by Delhi NCR and Mumbai. How do you see this $1 billion is the new $100 million tagline for India and its growth? Let me start this question with Ms. Prerna. How do you welcome this for India and its vision?
Thank you so much. So I absolutely completely agree with this statement. Certainly, 1 billion is the new 100 million for a country like India. And I think the reason for that is that India's tech movement has arrived, as you rightly said. I think what Digital India could not do, what a lot of incentives from the government could not do, that habit change came in after COVID. As in, you're talking about 2021. In 2020 alone, we saw the second highest deal value in the entire decade. In the middle of the pandemic, we saw the second highest deal value. And when we go back and look at what are the maximum contributors to this growth, it is all technology, be it ed tech or food tech or new areas such as gaming and enterprise SaaS. All of this is really coming up in a country like India. And as you rightly said, unicorns is coming up in India at a very, very unprecedented rate. In April this year, when we were in the middle of the second peak, we saw half a dozen unicorns come up in only 4 days. I was in fact reading this very interesting report done by Credit Suisse, which says that there are 336 listed entities in India which have a valuation of over a billion. And we have 100 unicorns in India which have a valuation of over 240 billion together. And most of them are in some way or the other tech influenced. Now, if we have to go back and look at the inherent reason, what changed, what happened, I think, you rightly said this pandemic's been the source, but more so, there are 625 million internet users in a country like India. And what is really interesting is that most of them are only now starting the entire video streaming and chatting and e-commerce and social network. They're only building that habit currently. We all know e-commerce right now is only 3% of our entire retail in a country like India. A lot of our startups are currently in that habit creation mode. They're in the mode of burning cash because they're making more and more customers come onto their website. Once that changes and once we move on to a position where that pole changes, wherein they start booking profit, then I think the billion will be lesser than a 10 million in a country like India. And what one has to see, when we're talking about unicorns, if we know we are the third largest unicorn ecosystem in the world now after US and China. But for the perspective of everybody, number of unicorns in a country like US are approximately 300. China has over 160. We have over 37. The number of funded startups in these countries as a comparison are more than 65,000 in China, more than 65,000 in US, more than 16,000 in China, and only around 10,000 in India. So, if you look at it as a percentage, there's a lot more that can happen in India. And if we only talk about the number of internet users as against only 290 million internet users in US, we have more than 625 million in India. That is going to bring about that transition with the startups, with the kind of inherent interest that is being built in the country. And also the fact that What China was able to achieve earlier in the 2000s is what India is achieving now. And also now a lot of people are moving out of China, including institutional investors, PEs and VCs, who are now looking at the potential that the Indian consumer base provides, along with the kind of sophistication that Indian startups have been able to achieve, because of which this tremendous growth is something that I think is just beginning, and there's a lot more that we will see in the Indian startup ecosystem.
Great, great. Thank you so much. I think because of the digitization, which is also penetrating in tier two and tier three cities, I think that is a bigger growth that we can expect over a period of. Great, great. Let me take these questions to Venki. Venki, how do you embrace this from a Indian growth point of view?
Thanks, Manju. The last 2 years has fast forwarded the startup growth multifold and helped mature the entire ecosystem. What I see is that next 10 years as a period of hyper growth in terms of number of startups, the number of jobs created in startups, number of unicorns, number of deep tech startups, number of global startups that India will have, and also diversification across sectors. Today we see 5 or 6 major sectors where Indian startups are working. But I see, last couple of years, sectors like space tech, agri tech, energy tech, water tech, which are traditionally not so traditional, have also come up. I also see that going forward in next few years, Indian startups will enter into solving problems like Indian justice system is very slow. So problems of legal tech, digitization of land holding, etc. And each of these is going to catalyze each other and drive the tremendous benefit. I see three major pillars of this entire growth. First is the ecosystem itself. Acceptance by customers. So 10 years ago, when I started my first company, when I would go to a customer, they would say, "You are a startup, we can't take chances." Now it's reverse. People come to us and say, "Okay, startups can solve our problem, therefore you participate in this." The entire culture has come in of startup. We have created a number of success stories, which is bringing younger people to the startup arena and ecosystem. More importantly, the new generation is very fearless and bold. They do not fear taking risks. When we were growing up, only government jobs were available. We were asked to look for government jobs and things like that. Several years working in corporate, we were ready to take chances. But now young generation just come out of college, ready to take chances. And then the entire startup know-how and mentorship is available in the ecosystem. Second is the availability of capital. In last couple of years, many seed stage funds have come up. So they are driving it. But what I see is, many startups founders are wealthy, but they are not liquidated yet. Some of them are, so they are funding the startup ecosystem. But next 5 years, I see tremendous liquidity available with startup founders, and they are going to drive the growth of the next generation of startups. And third is, I also see a tremendous catalyst to the entire digital platforms and infrastructure which has been laid by government of India. So things like Aadhaar, the India Stack, the UPI, the new ones which are coming up like account aggregator. I see them a tremendous potential, many use cases to drive several startup and segments. Platforms that are being conceived like ONDC and many other such platforms are going to be a big catalyst. So I see a pretty good and a lot of success stories coming out in next 10 years.
Great, great. I think the employment is bigger achievement, as you said, and the women empowerment is something which I really seen. I mean, most of the companies, even in your micro fulfillment centers which you are handling, the women empowerment on the employment side is also really growing in India for now. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Venki.
One of the key reasons is the availability of capital, right? Earlier, the availability of capital to women was very difficult. Now it's available at all segments. It's tested, and that's one of the key drivers I see that is going to take this forward.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Venki. Let me take this question to Pranav from an automation solution provider perspective. How the current investments are keeping you busy, Pranav?
Yeah, it's keeping us quite busy. That's the fact, actually. Just to start off from, the statement itself, 1 billion is the new 100 million tagline, actually. I see it with two perspectives. When I say there is a $1 billion unicorn that we are actually is coming up in India, one thing is makes us proud. Second thing is when we look at the 100 million number, we multiply it and then we do the math and understand that's a lot of money, actually. Then the question is coming up, where is it all going to get into? If we are looking at least a scenario which was 3 to 5 years back, mostly startups would be investing this into software technology, people, or customer acquisition, and all of it, actually. But today we see this all stabilized well, actually, to a certain extent, actually, at least in the giants who are actually there in the industry already. And mostly these investments that are coming in right now are going to be in improving productivity, increasing your operational efficiencies, and these aspects, actually. So when this perspective is going to come up, first thing is what people are going to do is try working on improving their infrastructures and start putting that on their priority list. So as a company who's into engineering and automation solutions for this segment, one thing that we quite often come across people asking us is the first most important thing is speed is increasing day by day. Flexibility in operations have to improve, actually. Productivity is by default is a mandatory need today, actually. And of all, efficiency is the most important thing. So we come up with we get people, customers coming to us and asking us for these priority aspects, actually, to be in most of the automation solutions that we are providing, actually. And it is becoming the order of the day, which was what yesterday was a semi-automated solution requirement in the market. Today is getting towards a completely fully automated solution needs, actually. So that's what we are seeing. And most importantly, what is happening is in the market, what we see is it's no more a fight between the big and the small, actually. It's always a fight between the faster and the slower ones, actually. So that's what we are getting. And the faster you put in solutions, the faster you're there in the market, you're appreciated, and your solutions are much very much applicable and ready for people, actually.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I mean, just to extend further on that question, do you see people are the organizations looking at not only from the ROI perspective, they are also looking at certain other factors when they think of automation per se?
Absolutely. Slowly, improvisation is increasing, actually. People are looking at investing more into technology. Automation, especially in the production layer, was considered very semi-automized or partially automized till about a year back, actually. Right now, people are very much looking into fully automated solutions, actually.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. That's glad to hear, actually. I mean, everybody were talking about ROI earlier days. Yeah. So anybody have want to add before we move to the next question? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
good morning, everybody. Manish here. So, sir, thanks. So, talking about automation further, so I would like to add something. So, it has been always from a user perspective, it has always been a question how to judge the automation. ROI has always been a question mark or a discussion point or a decision point. But when during COVID, when a lot of companies actually face shortage of not only skilled manpower, but manpower itself, so it has actually given an opportunity to industry to rethink about the automation. So this is for sure that the manpower cost is going to increase with time. So in my opinion, automation needs to be planned and executed phase wise. So this is what we are doing. And as we grow in numbers, the customer expectation increases, the complexity of the business keeps on increasing. So eventually and effectively, the cost of automation becomes cheaper and cheaper. So if we are able to make the linkage of our numbers and automation level, so probably we can execute slowly without having big investment at one time and getting phase-wise ROI or phase-wise investments. So this gives us additional benefit that we don't have to call for attrition also. So that we have to take care. So why I'm talking about this, that whenever we go for an automation, so we should secure the current manpower. So that threat should not be there. So, and if we are able to primarily focusing on not increasing the manpower at natural pace. For example, my business has increased 20%, but manpower remains same with the automation. So that actually gives an advantage to everybody. Also, I would like to say that for automation, we should always be open to show our implementations, and we should be among the competitors also, and we should visit other companies what all they are doing, so we can learn from each other. There is also a drastic change in volumes being handled by the companies. For example, these are which are engaged in e-commerce. So this involves OEMs and service providers both. So for the automation part also, we should focus upon not only at the factory side, but phase by phase, bit by bit, we should implement at all the consolidation and delivery centers as well. So exploring the low automation anyway will be a desire and need of the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Wo- One of the just another point, Manjunath, one of the other points I noticed is all this the focus of startups on deploying technology has really gone up multifold. You know, it is about bringing in best in class technology in terms of say deep learning, analytics, machine learning, and IoT. This is going to drive the change of startups. And more importantly, as I think someone pointed out, it is now driving towards cost optimization and bringing in automation into the industries, and also in process streamlining. So a lot of these which used to be done manually is getting automated. So deploying technology is going to be the lever for this change.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. I encourage all the participants to post your questions on the Q&A chat there, so that we can address them by end of the session. Yeah, let's move on to the next question. So experts estimate that Etail may beat modern trade by 2026. Let me put some numbers to justify. E-retail in financial year 2019 was about $23 billion. In 2020, it raised to $30 billion. Year ending March 2021, with sustained lockdowns across India, it surged by about 25% to reach about $38 billion. This growth, the domestic e-retail market is expected to grow, let's assume 25 to 30% annually over next 5 years. By 2026, is expected to touch about 120 to 150, 140 billion dollars, which is higher than the modern trade. Interestingly, small town India is expected to fuel this growth. So let me take this question straight to Mr. Senthil. How do you see this offline versus online transformation in your business over the period of time, Mr. Senthil?
Yeah, good morning all. So very well pointed out, Manju. So you are right. We could see an exponential growth that is happening, or the migration that is happening from traditional business to both modern trade as well as to retail. But the growth of modern trade is relatively happening in a very organic way, in a linear way. So even the period that you mentioned, so modern trade grew by 5%, wherein e-tail grew by 25%. So this, I am presuming, is going to continue this way. And as you mentioned, while in 2026 we are expecting this to cross 130 billion, and even in 2024 we are expecting this to hit 100 billion by value, and it will not be that far away from modern trade. And by 2026 we are 100% confident that e-tail will be surpassing modern trade. The key driver of growth for e-tail going forward is going to come from the rural part. And as Madam Prerna was mentioning, with mobile connections that is driving across in all our country, the connectivity is going to be much easy, and the technology startups that are coming up are going to make the viability of this even more better. And most of the FMCG product per se, I would say, is more of an impulse buy. So people have to traditionally look, feel, and then make a decision of buying. If they are even have not planned to buy something, but by the way they look at it, it is more of an impulsive buying. And that was always a challenge how e-com can really catch up to that. With mixed reality as a technology that is coming up today, it might not seem to be affordable for a segment like this, wherein automobile industry is catching up on selling their product through mixed reality. It is not that far away. the same technology will become more affordable for and also be reachable through mobile devices across all the segments, which will fuel this growth and then continuing this exponential growth that what we are seeing. And thanks to pandemic in a way which fuels this growth, but nevertheless, the trend is going to continue both based on the connectivity as well as the affordability of the technology. And this is where I think most of the companies today, they are focusing on to see on tap on this area. And this really helps us being in multi-modal platform. So while we still see a big chunk of us coming from the traditional sales. So it is like more than 85%, around 85% today. So that's still a big ticket item that we'll be focusing. But the major growth what we see is in this segment on Etail. So how it makes our life much easier. We'll be able to present more products and platforms and on these platforms with multiple SKUs, and also helps us have a more predictable demand forecasting. So it will be more of a demand-driven supply chain. So it is also going to help us be more agile and produce what is required. So it will be more of the true demand-driven requirement planning will be taking shape. And this is going to be, I think, way forward.
Oh, great.
I have a small observation, Manjunath, if I'm allowed to speak, right?
Go ahead, yeah.
Because I was we bit a part of the e-retail, so to speak. So the growth is exponential and no doubts on that. But unless the path to profitability is established, right? I sense a doubt in terms of e-tail overtaking the traditional retail. So there it has to be a cohesive effort from both the platform players as well as the brands to make this happen. Because the brand tends to part off with margins that is in par or at par with the traditional distribution system. So unless that changes, right? So you will not be able to fuel the e-tailing to go beyond a certain point. Okay, that's my small observation. Thank you.
Yeah, you are right, Mr. Anand. So my point is also not on the overtaking the traditional. We are maybe I stand corrected between modern trade and the retail. So traditional business is still going to continue, and their percentage of contribution today is at 85%, and that is not going to be falling so sharply.
Sure.
Great. Let me ask the same question on the other side, Mr. Manish. Do you see an impact on your business? Manish sir, you're on mute. Yeah.
Sir, on account of COVID?
In a way, from the modern to e-retail perspective.
Sir, actually, we are into a different business slightly. So if we talk about our business, sorry, I'm talking about spare parts perspective. So we are actually intent to have a fitment along with the service. Primarily, two-wheeler we have some distributor model also, but primarily like this. So it is a kind of that customer has to go and buy the part or get it fitted. So slightly different, but yes, definitely impact whatever impact was there in the automobile industry as a whole. So we also faced it.
Okay, interesting.
So definitely with the lesser movement, but we tend to that people should move more. So wherever there are work from home or lesser movements, that has actually impacted us.
Great. Thank you so much. Swami said, as your business is mostly, concentrated in metros, how are you preparing for this change?
See, the way I see it, Manjunath, is the bulk of talking about the modern trade and traditional retail, modern trade and digital commerce. In the way I see it, the consumers will access both the channels. Consumers are not going to be accessing only digital or only accessing physical retail. The quicker we as companies and organizations look at it together, we would be far better off than looking at it separately all the time. The biggest challenge is we are always looking at it as one versus the other, because of which the profitability challenges, all these challenges come into play. Yeah. But when you really look at it together, because the way I see it, omni-channel is going to grow dramatically. and the digital commerce is also going to grow dramatically. Unless we all organizations together focus on driving both, not one at the cost of the other, we will get into profitability challenges soon. Because the consumer has both the requirements, especially in our business. Consumer is currently willing to buy a lot online. There is no doubt. Consumers are willing to spend 25,000 of jewelry online, leave alone 5,000 rupees a shirt. Things have changed dramatically. But at the same time, people, I think consumers also want to access and see the goods, and touch and feel also would be there. And also we need to be able to execute from our store for a digital commerce. If you're able to do that, the service which we can offer to the customers will be far superior to what we can offer just through digital commerce. Yeah, and looking at the challenges, this is going to throw up a lot of challenges. In fact, we are able to do these all the omni-channel deliveries and all that, from and also even to deliver to physical retail to metros. The moment you go out of metros, the current logistics system, the development, the maturity of the logistics system is being to reliably deliver at a faster lead time to say tier 3, tier 4 smaller towns is still a challenge. We are still far away from reliably delivering and faster to these towns. Yeah. So the way I see it, that is going to be one of the biggest challenges of the industry. Is to be able to build this capability in the next say couple of years, to be able to reach out all the towns, build. This starts with the head, the way you plan the business, the way you plan your inventory, the way you plan your merchandise, and also to the execution systems of micro fulfillment centers, the last mile delivery capability. It's a whole ecosystem, including your planning system and the way you build. See, your business has to change, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think a couple of guys are actually thinking of who has to go first. Let me take this question to Vinith. Vinith, what do you think of this? I mean, you have a question in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if you look at, let me phrase it in a 4 different segment, right? One is where we are currently in terms of numbers. What are the key challenges? What are the potential solutions? And what is the vision for, let's say, 2030? So if you look at currently, India is almost a logistic market of $220 billion with 14% GDP contribution, right? Which is a very high compared to the, let's say, what is there in the US or the global average of almost 8%, right? But the logistic overall segment is growing. And if you look at the government vision also for the $5 trillion economy, right? They are also aware that it is going to put a lot of pressure on the overall supply chain. And then there are a lot of challenges around, you can say, poor infrastructure, indirect costs, fragmented networks, lack of technology adoption. I mean, you will be surprised, we are still under 10% of the technology penetration in the supply chain, right? And COVID has just, I think it has just exposed the fragileness in the overall supply chain recently, where now every stakeholder is thinking, you can say, considering digitization not just an option, but it is now a necessity in a way, right? So let me talk about the key numbers, right? The key issues, if you look at why there are high, you can say, cost in terms of the road transportation. Our dependency is very high on the road transportation, somewhere around 60%. And then there are typically vehicle runs almost 300 to 400 kilometers per day, right? While compared to US, they run almost 700, 800 kilometers. Our trains are a little bit slow compared to the other countries, right? And then there are hidden costs as well, which are due to the manual intervention, mismanagement in the inventory, etc., etc. Poor infrastructure in terms of, you can say, roads are not there, or maybe trains network are not there, slow adoption of technology, limited lack of visibility in their operations. And what could be the potential solution? So obviously technology-enabled supply chain network, where, not just one segment of the supply chain, but I think the end-to-end supply chain network needs to be integrated through the technology, right there from the kirana store to the distribution center, to the manufacturer, to the other stakeholders who are actually carrying the material, right? And then there should be a real-time visibility with the help of machine learning, IoT, You can say blockchain could be a new age, right? Technology which can be used for the better planning, right? I mean, Amazon recently, I think, it started where they can predict, I mean, they start moving the material even before there is an order, right? So I think those kind of a predictability and the analytics needs to be there, right? And the building the logistic infrastructure in terms of the EVs coming into picture now, right? A more greener supply chain which can be there, right? So government policies for the faster approval of the logistic network, right? Or logistic parks, better road infrastructure, right? Policies or incentives for the technology adoption for the various stakeholders, right? So these are the things which can be there. And if you look at the overall vision for the 2030, I think India needs to be there in the top 20 nations in the logistic performance index, right? With, I think, less dependency on the road transport, 90% digitization on the supply chain, right? And then obviously Atmanirbhar Bharat is the new mantra where everyone is following, building things in-house, right? And building technology in-house and giving chance to the startups, as most of the people have said. And I mean, likes of omni-channel, which recently one of the panelists has mentioned that omni-channel needs to be there, right? So these are the things which will, I think, make India at the, I think the number will be somewhere around 8% of the GDP contribution by 2030. Yeah.
Great, great. Thanks. Great insights, Vinit. Mr. Ajay, what is your take on this from a technology's expansion point of view?
Yeah, Mr. Manjunath, and thank you. I mean, yeah, I mean, I am speaking from a privilege of everybody else has spoken, and I kind of have a sense of their thoughts. So this is a very interesting time to kind of answer that question. And if I may, take on some of the ideas that already has been discussed. I mean, for example, Mr. Senthil Kumar brought in a very interesting point, which was a demand-driven adoption of technology. And Mr. Swaminathan also spoke about omni-channel because consumers will demand that. Right? You will have to address to the needs of the consumers who want to go physical. And obviously, none of us can deny the adoption of e-commerce, retail practice. Right? So that is here to stay. So in terms of technology adoption, I mean, my perspective and our belief is that it will all be outcome driven. It will all be driven by the consumer, and everything, whatever it takes to address that desire, that choice that today consumers have, will need to be addressed. Right from the micro fulfillment center to the last mile, and going back to the first mile as well, and everything in between. So I believe all my esteemed panelists would agree to this, that the entire ecosystem is picking up the pieces and addressing that requirement which is thrown at us as a very challenging pace by the consumers. And by the consumers, I mean, we all are there in that segment, right? Pandemic has only accelerated it, but it has also exposed, hitherto the unaddressed sector. I mean, for example, Vineet was speaking about predictive analysis. That has only been increased, the adoption has increased. But I mean, the requirement was always there. Otherwise, you will leave the demand unaddressed. And when I would also want to share some numbers, I mean, on the consumer index survey, even today, almost 80% plus consumers believe that their overall delivery experience is not positive. More than 57% consumers believe that the organizations which will not deliver the visibility throughout the supply chain, they're unlikely to go and buy again from them. So as a consumer, we are exercising those choices. I mean, we want visibility, we want positive delivery experience, we want information, and we want the way things, we desire, whether it is omni-channel, whether physical, whether online, or whatever in between, right? Click and collect or curbside delivery, all those concepts are driven by consumers. So what we believe is that technology will be forced, and the organizations who will recognize this and will try and address this, the empowering the consumer by all means, will be the successful organizations. And that is where all the startup ecosystem, all the unicorns, they all are taking one piece of the unsolved puzzle and trying to address it, right? And that's how they are increasing the valuation and bringing revenue on the table. So I believe all this ecosystem will be driven by demand, will be driven by the consumers, and all the technology piece has to fulfill that. We are there almost 80% today in terms of having technology to answer some of those needs. but I would still say that 20% in next 9 years time, by 2030, we'll see a lot of disruption and a lot of change. And I mean, you all will agree. I mean, we are seeing all those happening right now, right? I mean, 5G is still to be explored totally, right? The EV revolution is still to come. The AI, I mean, we've just kind of brushed the surface of AI piece. So, I mean, more and more predictive analysis and algorithm-based answers we will see as we go forward. So that is my take, Mr. Manjunath, on the road forward.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Those numbers look so interesting, actually, to look at it. Yeah. Let me ask this to Venki. So, how do you see from a Stackbox B2B business expansion side of the story, Venki?
See, if you look at the traditional consumer products distribution, where companies deployed a large number of distributors and dealers to serve the kirana commerce or the kiranas, that is under a lot of pressure right now. And kiranas are here to stay. I mean, we all discussed just now, all panelists pointed out that while Etail will increase, modern trade will grow at a lower pace, kiranas are here to stay. So even 5 years, 10 years down the line, we are talking about 70-75% of the value passing through kiranas. But they are under the traditional distribution system is under a lot of pressure, and both on the demand side as well as the cost side. There are many heavily funded and capitalized, organized, large-scale distributors are putting pressure on demand side. If they take away 20-30% of their top class products, it descales and it's no more sustainable. And also they're providing a very high, much higher customer service level. So even kiranas now expect Amazon class customer service. At the same time, if you look at cost of manpower has increased, the cost of rentals have increased, especially in the cities, because they're typically, all the towns and cities is where they need to hold the inventory in the middle of the town. Transportation cost has gone up, and all this because supply is limited, and even bigger companies like Amazon, Flipkart, and everybody else is looking at the same supply. And given their small size, they can't take advantage of scale and technology to drive efficiencies and match the service levels to keep the cost down and drive the efficiency that are needed. And at the same time, FMCG companies are also not increasing the margin a lot or keeping the pace with the costs. And this is leading to significant churn in the distribution ecosystem. And I believe that there is a play for us, a company like us, where we bring the power of technology and scale to enable the distributors to compete with the larger players and drive the service level and the cost efficiency that are needed. So I see this as a tremendous growth opportunity for a company like us going forward, and also a tremendous value addition in terms of the society, because I see that these traditional distributors and the entire ecosystem provides a huge number of job opportunities to many people across larger, smaller towns, and that will continue if we continue to have this ecosystem sort of retained. That's from a B2B perspective. From B2C's perspective, very quickly, if you look at all the companies are promising very shortened service levels, 10 minutes. It used to be 1 day, then came half day, then came now 10 minutes. What it means is everybody needs to, whoever is promising this, they need to have the consumer, the inventory very close to the customers, which means that there is a lot of square footage in terms of dark store or equivalent of that is needed very close to the customers, and it's not going to be sustainable in my view. There has to be a different solution, because typically if you go say 60-65 rupees per square feet beyond such space, it's not sustainable, not viable. You can do it for some time, but it's not viable in a long term, because the alternate cost of commercial space is 125-200 rupees per square feet if you look at residential and commercial in the same space. So availability of such space is also very, very limited. And I see the role of kirana again coming very, very important here in this delivering the service level. So if somebody wants to deliver this 10-minute, 20-minute service level, role of traditional outlets become again very, very important, because they are the one having the inventory, the space, and also the ability to reach the community at a very, very fast pace. And that needs to be enabled. And the tech needs to be there to be enable that to drive this. So yeah, that's my take on this.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Venki. I mean, that actually gives a lot of breath to us. The Kiranas continue to say something. Yeah. Let me ask, we have Vikas sir. I'll touch upon Prerna's point and come back to you, sir. Just give me 1 minute. Prerna, what do you think from the overall perspective? What's your take on this?
Sure. So thank you. So I think, a lot of points have already been covered, but there's just one aspect which I think will also play in the minute we talk about growth, and when we talk about small town integration into the entire supply chain. There's one aspect which is very well integrated with technology, which is the customer experience. As Mr. Mishra will rightly said, the customer is going to drive it. But one thing that customers have got very used to is personalized experiences. When we start talking about rural India, when we start talking about the middle income group, there are a lot of regional dialects which become important. Local products become very, very important. So when we are talking about this entire growth of Etail versus modern tail, when the entire aspect would grow, what is going to be very, very crucial in looking at how this growth will actually happen is how well our companies and startups can adapt to this kind of a change, and how well can they provide that service and that kind of an experience to a customer. If you can provide him with his local product online, or if you can provide him with the experience of having any family being able to order online using their own language. Of course, the other aspect of supply chain, the amount of time it takes, wherein you can of course look at the requirement of physical touch of a product as against going online. All of these aspects will of course matter in the longer period, and in creation of that habit. As I said, when you're talking about this change, the kind of the quality of product will also have a difference, because we've seen in the past you would order online, but the kind of experience you have by when you go out and touch and feel the product is a little different. So all of these aspects will come in together and really determine the future. COVID, of course, has forced us into looking at these aspects as a part of our way of living, wherein we are now trying to order a lot more online. But how the entire experience becomes customized to individual customers is something that we would certainly, take up how the industry grows in the future.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining, Vikas sir. I mean, we have been waiting for you, and I'm sure that everyone on the group have the same question like what I have. So we would like to understand from you. I mean, we have Vikas Chaubey, Secretary Logistics, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, and we have one question for you, sir. Basically, all of us are eager to understand what are the steps taken by government to digitize logistics sector. That is, one is the cry on the road. So we thought, let us understand from you.
So thank you, Mr. Manjunath. First of all, my apologies. A meeting of senior officers continued a little longer than I had anticipated, so I could not join on time. But thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for organizing this event where you have brought together so many so much experience and so many bright young minds, and it is heartening to see all this excitement and enthusiasm on a subject which is very, very critical for the logistics sector, because a lot of gains and improvements and efficiencies and cost reductions that we have to bring about, that we must bring about in order to make our export as well as our internal production and consumption more efficient and requiring less cost inputs. In order to achieve that, the reduction in logistics cost is an absolute necessity. The target that we set is steep, but it is very much achievable, given that a lot of work in terms of creation of additional infrastructure, whether it is roads, railways, air, and you have heard all the names of all the various projects which are going on in those directions. So a lot of that work has been done. What is required is integration. It is the integration challenges that we must
address very aggressively. And when you talk of integration, nothing integrates like digital technology. So it is one of the one of the subjects which is closest to the heart of all policy makers in the so far as the logistics ecosystem is concerned. Now, your question is, what is it that the government is doing, or what is it that what is the policy action in this regard? I think the action on the part of individual businesses has been spoken about, and I think there is a lot of progress there. How do we put it all together so that what enablers can the government provide in order to have that excitement converted into the actual user experience? I think which the previous speaker Prerna was talking about. How does it actually convert into a better user experience and a better now, the first thing that I would like to talk about from the point of view of logistics policy action is something that the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned very briefly in his speech on 15th of August, the Gati Shakti, the idea of the national master plan, where I don't want to go ahead of myself, but what I can certainly let you know is that the various layers of infrastructure need to be put together on a geospatial map, so that it is possible, instead of looking at each of these sectors from a sectoral lens, we start looking at them in a geospatial manner, where integration is the obvious thing that once you look at it from a geospatial perspective, you don't look at what is railways, what is roadways, what is state government. So you look at it with a whole of nation approach, and you look at it from the user's perspective, origin to destination. What is it that where are the gap areas, where are the areas which require first and last mile connectivities, which are the densely which are the areas in the country which are not getting the gains of all the infrastructure development that is taking place. So that is the first and foremost initiative. I will certainly not like to get ahead of myself on this, but what I would like to say is that this plan is ready, and it is something which is very, very exciting in terms of the amount of IT work that has gone into the capturing of the various layers of infrastructure and getting it all together on a geospatial map. And it will change the way works are projects are considered, projects are sanctioned. It will change the way we are doing our decision making. So a lot of scope and potential there in developing a full whole of country, whole of nation, whole of government approach towards time bound implementation of and selection of important projects. The second thing is that as you must be aware that various line ministries, whether it is customs, whether it is the port community, whether it is railways, whether it is roadways, they all have their legacy systems, which again have been developed very vertically in a siloed manner. Now, and therefore, if you require some information, you want to pull out some information from one database and another piece of information from another database, and create something which kind of is an output of inputs from multiple databases, and there is a lot of business opportunity out there, mind you. So that is not very easily feasible, as of now. And there is a project on the unified logistics interface platform, the ULIP, on which the objective of which is to provide API interface with all the various databases of all the various sectors, so that the possibility of not only track and trace across sectors, because all the movement is from origin to destination is multimodal, and right now you have to log off, then log in, then log off, then log in. So all of that, so that is a very elementary level at which it will be useful, but I think from the point of view of the users, etc., that is very vital. But more than that, I think it creates an opportunity, providing all the databases available for a lot of innovation, in terms of doing more research and deciding what kind of new products. I mean, a e-marketplace for logistics could be an outcome of could be a use case from this ULIP platform. Another area that I would want to mention is the enforcement. I mean, a study that we carried out, we got to learn that there are 66 reasons for which a truck is stopped. For various compliance reasons. Now, the objective of the government is to see how we can make this enforcement smart. For example, if a truck is to be stopped because the driver's license is no longer valid, you don't need to stop a truck for that. I mean, that is an information placed in somebody's database. I mean, you can already red mark that particular vehicle or that particular driver based on that information. If a vehicle maintenance is overdue, that is not also something, whether the pollution check is overdue, you need not stop a vehicle for that. And and then risk based systems for identifying the frequent offenders can be created, and the manner of approaching the task of enforcement can be approached in a much more scientific and digitally enabled manner. So this is not the only one. Likewise, we are also developing risk based systems for import clearance. For example, many compliances are required at port level for let us say animal quarantine, or textile committee does its own compliance. So multiple as they are called PGAs, or partner government agencies, which apart from customs, and customs itself is working on and has already implemented a risk based system for compliance. So that is another area of action. Track and trace of containers, and a commodity in very short supply these days, and a sore point for export community. Improving the availability through improving turnarounds by monitoring dwell times at various nodes at which the containers are moving. So the logistics data bank of NICDC is already there, available in public domain, and track and trace of containers has been facilitated. It needs to grow and expand and improve further, but that's a continuous process. Documents that we exchange in logistics. Presently, we do that physically. I mean, if you have a bill of lading, you will have to physically transfer it to another location. Now, in today's day and age, I think that's really outdated, but a viable, secure system for digital document exchange needs to be created, and a secure logistics digital exchange proof of concept has been prepared by logistics division, and we have done interface, checkings with the port community, with the IBA, the Bankers Association, and all. And we hope to, find a managed service provider for the secure logistics document exchange as well. And then, of course, there are other things like a digital directory for logistic parks and terminals, warehouses, digitizing the approval processes. So there is a full gamut of logistics activity, which towards which the digital logistics strategy of the government is directed. So I'll stop here. I think that is what I had to offer. But thank you once again for this opportunity, and I must compliment you for selecting this topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insights, sir. I mean, that there are pretty good points which have come up. I mean, the key takeaway for me in this overall point is the integration, right? So there are bits and pieces where we have to integrate together and take things forward. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, sir. So I'll request Tarun to post the second poll question for the audiences. Tarun?
I've launched it, sir.
We will maybe wait for about 10-15 seconds. You can close that and show us the results. Yeah, I think more or less everyone expecting this. Yeah. So, I mean, just to put the things around, so there has been about surge in the volumes of online ratings and reviews, almost about 40 to 80% higher during the core pandemic months in 2020 than it has been in the earlier years. So, this is mostly covering the same core areas which we kind of discussed. Yeah. Great. Let's move on to the next question. Before I could go further, Rima, I mean, can we are already at 12. So how long can we extend this session?
We can extend another 10-15 minutes.
10 to, okay, thank you so much. Yeah, we have time for the next two questions then. Yeah. So let me take up the next question. So which is basically on the, the urban logistics per se. So the UN report estimated in 2020 34.9% of Indians are city dwellers. About 12 crore people lives in four cities: Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, and Bangalore. We see the future is urban, which Venki was mentioning. So Grofers have recently announced 10 minutes grocery delivery time in 10 cities, which is average time is about 15 minutes today. Cost of servicing customers in cities will continue to increase. Yeah. Let me take the same questions to Venki. Since you're already handling multiple clients on groceries and e-com fulfillment, how do you see this for a offline business point of view, Venki?
Sorry, the question is not very clear to me. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. From the urban logistics point of view, I'm trying to understand how do you see this, cost of servicing customer will continue to increase.
Yes, so as I said earlier, the the key thing in this supply chain is the availability of space. You have to be very close to the customers and keep the inventory, and how much space you can have within this. And the cost of space is, first of all, the space is scarce, and the cost of space is very high. So it's not viable until you have a model where you partner with the existing footprint that is there, and the existing footprint is largely the traditional outlets. So I see that we have to enable them, we have to work with them, partner with them to enable if we want this kind of service level.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah. Manish, let me ask you this, though you are in spare parts, I'm just trying to understand how do you service them. So how do you see this in spare part business, and what type of automations that would help for urban logistics point of view specifically?
So thanks for asking this question. Actually, now, if we talk about spare parts from logistics from spare parts point of view, so we understand that we need to have the dealers and distributors across the country, whether it is tier one or tier two city, or say the urban part as well. So we can't say compromise of not having a spare parts available at the same time as we are providing to the customer who is sitting to closer to our factory or a dealership in say so-called metros. So we understand that the if we talk about the say the warehousing companies, so they are also making big warehouses grade A in those rural and urban both. So, and if we talk about rural, so it is very true that future is rural. We should make our presence as soon as possible. So we also understand that we should set up in terms of say warehouse or distributors or retailers there as well. And also, so one thing I would like to say that if the income or say of the distributor or retailer or say a workshop owner is less in rural, so there are the opportunities and expectations are also low as compared to the say urban. So we understand that rural is anyway the opportunity in future, and also the as the customer base is increasing, so definitely the earning opportunities would be increasing with time. So this is what our understanding is.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah. Pranav, since the manpower cost is like, we are talking about the future is urban. The manpower cost is increasing in urban cities, that we all agree. So how do you see the automation playing a role in this?
Yeah, manpower absolutely is increasing as one fact actually. At also one of the earlier speakers was saying we have to balance it out parallelly and go hand in hand with systems as well as manpower also being in place actually. So one thing what I see mostly in the urban warehouses, which is going to come with the newer models such as micro fulfillment and all of this other systems, what is going to come. I see three stages of robotics solutions which will fall in place. One is more like a stationary solution, which is doing the regular monotonous jobs of, just putting things from X to Y locations. And then you have autonomous robots, which are again growing slowly, which is transporting intra-logistics actually items inside the warehouses. And then there is a fulfillment robotics, which has got a bit of a cognitive addition into it, where it is understanding how to go pick automated products by itself and then coming and fulfilling, the needs. Parallelly, what can be done is the manpower is anyways going to be required to walk the last mile to deliver to the consumers at the end of the day. So we see this is one mechanism which is increasing slowly, and there are a lot of solution models which are evolving around this, and slowly there is a good traction that is building for these kind of solutions. So robotics is going to be the key of the micro fulfillments which is going to come in the years.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's what we have been witnessing in multiple e-com players who have been adopting this. Yeah, great. And last to Mr. Ajay. So, how are you? I mean, reinventing every day on the technologies in this kind of a VUCA world?
Yes, so one of the challenges is, as Mr. Vikas was also elaborating, the convergence and bringing everything on a single platform. So what we're trying to do is try to not solve it as a piecemeal, but bring it together as on a single platform where everything can be integrated and presented in a seamless manner. So automation piece of it with the input of data, then the processing of data, trace and track, visibility, real time, supply chain visibility, end to end. So everything put together, a complete solution which can be given to organizations for empowering them to have a better customer experience. So that way, that is a continuous work that we are pushed to do, and we have kind of made a lot of progress in that end. So we have a platform on which from these various sources you can have data, legacy, or current, and then bring them all together, not only to fulfill the current challenge but also to go and have those predictive analysis available, and take things forward, but also have enough scalability to accommodate any kind of requirement that can come up in next 10 to 15 years, not in terms of only physical technology but also in terms of digital technology. So that is something that we have pushed and we're challenged and we are revealing in terms of addressing and taking it that to the customers both inside and outside.
Great, great. Yeah, thank you so much. We have a little short of time, so I'll quickly take only one question for all of you, so that just to wrap it up, and we will take some time to kind of address those questions from our audiences as well. So the last question what I have is to embrace the supply chain of 2030. Companies should follow the best in class to extend collaboration, which we talked about the integration and all the stuff during the discussions. In doing so, all data can be seamlessly connected in order to make different decisions and improve performance. Are we ready for it? I would like to quickly take this question to Mr. Anand. Vision 2030 for India from an IT angle, right? How companies should see this opportunity for setting aspirations and transforming the supply chain. Yeah, your views on this.
Yep. Thank you very much, Manjunath. So one of the benefit of being a last bencher is that most of your thoughts are already spoken by the panelists, right? So you have less to speak about. I'll try to summarize as quickly as possible. So we are in a VUCA phenomenon's position, right? So vulnerability, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguities are all the new normal, so to speak, right? From work calls to grocery shopping, every aspect of our lives has been forced online. Now we have to learn to be to make this to take this as our new normal and be ready and start doing our readiness for the next decade or so that we are able to keep our head above the water, so to speak. Right? Hence, to surface from these challenges, automation and digitalization has become inevitable. right? If you take the example of the recent observations by Forrester, it estimates that prior to 2020, only 15% of the companies were digitally savvy, right? McKinsey suggests that digital adoption in the next left about 5 years ahead in just 8 weeks. Microsoft estimated 2 years. The transformation occurred in just 2 months, right? So these are the kind of adoptions that we are being observing across the board, be it may in the Indian context or in the Western world, right? This leads to our next question as to what is the leap length that each one should take. Should everyone go for digitalization? Should everyone go for automation, etc., right? So as they say, a gym routine adapts to your body needs. One has to be cognizant of the maturity of automation and digital adoption that they are in, right? That followed by the measured steps will be the roadmap for the next 10 years, in my opinion, right? For example, the companies with low investments in technologies can upgrade to automation. Companies in the mid and fairly higher points of maturity can adopt digitalization, which is basically adopting AI/ML in their processes, right? Companies which are ahead in the supply chain and are leading the maturity curve can democratize digitalization across the enterprise that they are working in, right? So digitalization has penetrated technologies of, if we look into the supply chain aspects, the WMS, the TMS, the OMS, asset management, and visibility, right? So all the aspects of supply chain has been already penetrated with digitalization. Mr. Chaubey also mentioned about how the Ministry of Logistics is looking at digitalization of the logistics at large, especially from the port angle, etc., right? So observing these patterns, visibility will become the ultimate port of call for every single organization. Okay, that's one thing that everyone should be aware and record it in their book so that they're making the right investment, so to speak, right? So there are different types of control towers when you talk of visibility. Control tower as a workbench, right? Am I able to observe the variations and I'm able to execute the alternate action, right? Yeah, can I get a control tower which is purely a KPI based dashboard and it has helped me to act as an RCA tool, right? Can I have live streaming tools like we see many of these last mile startup companies coming with alternative mechanisms of tracking the vehicles on the road to get anywhere from 90 to 95% of your total movements with acute visibility, right? It is talking of multivariate informations getting streamed into your system, then which affects your ATP as well as it affects your MRP, so to speak, right? All of this is becoming the new norm, so to speak. So control tower as a workbench, as a KPI for RCA, as a live streaming tools are necessary adaptations for the industry at large, right? Everyone should focus on this area. Okay, this has both operational and financial control benefits, right? So it is not that a siloed to an execution team, right? So as a parting note, I would recommend every organization to choose a partner for discovery to realization in this space in terms of automation or digitalization and not belittle the investments now, right? That's the overall outlook I have or I have observed for the next decade or so. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for the summary, Anand. Let me ask this question to, or further extending further from there, Senthil. So what all new age technologies do you see evolving to support the Vision 2030 for India?
Yep. While most of it was covered by the earlier panelists. So the key is the technology is always available, but how affordable it is for it to make business sense for me is something that every organization should look at. So how critical is the business problem for me? And then marry an appropriate technology which can solve my problem in the most optimal way. So for example, oil and gas industries used to have high criticality and then condition-based monitoring was there in ages. But the same technology now is available at a very, very affordable way, like vibration sensor, which are IoT enabled and will provide predictive maintenance over the cloud. So the cloud computing cost has come down and the cost of the sensors are also due to volume of sales have come down. So all of these are helping us achieve or solve our business problem. So as my panelists were mentioning, so we need to have a good roadmap for our organization and create a phased approach on which are the areas we are going to touch, which is more critical, how I can realize value from it and start driving from there. So to touch upon a couple of key technologies today, it might not look affordable, but I've got good potential is on 3D printing, augmented reality, AR, VR for trainings, and we have mixed reality also being used. Remote support, it really helped multiple organizations during this pandemic where people could not travel. having an augmented reality solution like an AR glass really helped multiple problems to be sorted out. And the other key part is about device independent platform agnostic solutions. So multiple technologies now talk to each other in a seamless way, which is very critical and key for us to come up with multivariate analysis like what I was mentioning. So we need to have data flow seamless, simple time series analysis can give us a lot of anomalies and help us identify or drive value through predictive and prescriptive processes. And the other area on logistics, specifically on the warehousing, so the advancement that is happening there, we would be getting to a lightless operation in logistics or warehouse operations much faster than manufacturing operations. So with respect to pick by vision or robotic management of all the materials, it might sound a bit costly solution at this point in time. Eventually, yes. It also need to see like fit for purpose. So which technology will meet my requirement and how I can marry that. And having an like a financial planner, we need to have a good plan in place for managing my business operations in a long-term view perspective. Say a 5-year roadmap on how my digital transformation and maturity should be, and which is critical for my business process, and evolve a phased approach. And that is going to be the key success. But we should not be more complacent on where we are today, because the things are going to be exponentially changing over the next couple of years. And hence, having a clear vision and way forward as a roadmap will be my suggestion.
Great, great. Thank you so much. Yeah. So just to quickly, I mean, maybe you can take a minute to kind of summarize if you have any points. I'll quickly ask one by one. And Pranav, I mean, they talked about a lot of technologies which are available. We have to be cognizant on choosing which one suits us. And do you see, from an end-to-end supply chain, what are the few parameters the organizations must focus on?
Yeah, I guess most of the points the other panelists have already spoken about, but I'll keep it quite short and simple. Okay. So the key for 2030 is going to be digitalization. So through the entire supply chain, as much digitized as we can be, if we are, that's when, we would be able to solve all the problems that's going to come in actually. Because look at the facts, we've got about 1,000 plus logistics service providers today. We've got about a handful of e-com companies only. And there are now the direct to consumer kind of concepts are increasing. Probably it's a few hundreds today, might increase to a few thousands in the next 10 years or so actually. And then you have this long list of the FMCG and the industry chain. So if you look at all of this in the entire supply chain mechanism, it's going to be quite complex actually. So if you have to get into the physical world with such a complex structure, better be well prepared. So getting digitalized is going to be the key mantra for most of the companies in the next 1 decade or so, to say that digitalization is going to be the key mantra for them to be more efficient. Because as one of our other panelists was saying earlier, 80% of the experiences what they have on an online shopping or on a digital shopping on a digital space is not satisfactory. So at the end of the day, it's all going to boil down to efficiency. That is going to be the priority in the next 1 decade to come. So that's where the coming generations definitely don't accept it actually. So they need higher efficient answers or solutions to their problems actually. So digitalization, I feel, is going to be the key mantra for the next decade to come.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah. Swami sir, you want to take a minute to address on how do you see the vision 2030 for India?
Sorry, can you repeat? I couldn't hear.
Yeah, just your perspective on vision 2030 for India.
What I would say is, one is in terms of the supply chain, I see, as I said earlier, a lot of technology being deployed in the sector in the next 10 years. I think that is going to be extremely critical for bringing down costs and improving automation. Automation, as someone was pointing out, from semi-automated to fully automated spaces, we need to move there. And the bulk of the human resources need to be focused on the interaction with customers and the final last mile. That is where the processes would be, and a lot of focus would be on automation. That is what I would see in the next couple of maybe next 10 years in India. And a lot of focus on infrastructure development also. I think that is happening across the country, but the deployment of technology would be the key, in my opinion, for the next 10 years. That is what I see as the key driver till 2030.
Great, great. Yeah, thank you so much. Prerna, you want to add some points here?
So I absolutely agree. This is certainly going to be technology focused. I think if we go back and look at the past of supply chain, the problem that we faced or the inherent limitation was the fact that we didn't have enough information. Even today, when we talk about the fact that we are living in an era where there's enough information, actually only 30% of that is being used. As Vineet rightly said, Amazon currently is looking at moving shipments even when there's no order. I think that is going to be the future of all of our supply chain, wherein we will have enough AI, big data, artificial intelligence being used to predict the kind of trends that our customer is going to follow, which is obviously going to mean that there's going to be a lot more supply chain which gets integrated into smaller areas. Instead of planning a global supply chain, we would be doing it on a regional level. Products in a lot of ways will be treated as services in the future, wherein there's a quick demand and a quick supply happening. We will start seeing physical retailers being used more than just a retailer as a mini warehouse, which to some extent is already happening. But that concentration of warehousing is something that we will certainly see as more and more information and data is used in the future. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, Ajay sir, you wanna go next? Touch upon on Vision 2030 for India.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of covered that, but just to summarize the whole thing, what I see, I mean, as everybody has spoken, the technological adoption will be there. I mean, we all will be forced. But I think just adding one more point to what Mr. Swaminathan and what Ms. Prerna just said is that we will also have to consider the productivity norms, which probably in the expansion phase we are missing out today. But in another 7 to 8 years time horizon, I see that we'll start talking about in terms of per person productivity, in terms of utilizing whatever assets and resources that we have much more effectively. I think today we are all in the expansion phase, and rightly so. I mean, we have a lot of ground to cover from that angle, looking at the rural demand, which is just taking off. But in another 8 to 9 years, once we've covered that ground, I think more solutions will be evolving towards measuring the performance and productivity on the already invested capacity and installed base. That is my thought, Mr. Manjunath.
Great job. And Venki, you want to touch upon on this?
Yeah. Yeah, so I see both external and internal set of initiatives. So in terms of internal initiatives, I see this as a 3 different phases of journey, depending on where the company is today. It starts with automation or digitization and automation. Second is augmentation of the human abilities to make decisions. And then finally, the holy grail is the autonomous supply chain, as we discussed. So over the next 5 to 7 years, I see digitization of supply chain, deployment of technologies like robotic process automation tools to do routine tasks, as well as deployment of industrial automation across sectors to do simple tasks is the first step. Post that, I see the augmentation, where cognitive ability comes in. The augmentation is about significantly aiding and expanding the human capabilities. And basically, it's increasing the accuracy and speed of complex decision making. For example, if you have in the short term, if you have some disruption in supply chain, how do you make decisions across multiple decision sets? So those kind of capabilities will come in. And then finally, the holy grail, which is the autonomous supply chain, which is self-learning, self-correcting supply chain. That's the journey that we are all going towards. In terms of the external factors, I think a couple of things that would be, has to go along with this. Otherwise, these investments will only make so much difference. The first is the infrastructure. Our infrastructure has to improve, and all the integration of multi-modal, intermodal supply chain across different modes of transportation has to improve. the policy related interventions, in fact, starting with the basic definition of what's a warehouse is missing today. I mean, the understanding of this is not there in the system. So starting from what's a godown, what's a warehouse, what can be a warehouse, these basic stuff are also missing. So having a clearly defined integrated national logistics policy, very infrastructure and government side to drive this.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Venki. That was so useful. And Manish sir, you have any points to add here before we could kind of wind up?
So thanks. Just a small point I would like to add that okay, wherever we stand today, but if we see say last 1.5 years, so whether it is forced or whether we can say as an opportunity, in terms of IT, we have moved a lot ahead in this 1.5 year, probably a decade or so. So, and also we understand whether we talk about, say, like in the post also that deliveries, supplies, or we talk about, say, some sectors which were not so traditional in terms of, say, online platforms. Like, for example, we talk about movies. So that are well accepted, the education, formal and informal. So that is also well accepted as of now. So even the things getting normalized, probably all these things will not get closed. And also persons working from home and majorly for the IT sectors or some manufacturing sector also. So these are also some realities which will be remaining in future also. So summarizing what I want to say, that definitely if we talk about next 10 years in terms of technology or in terms of automation, we would be much ahead as we were in the last 5 or 10 years. So this is my understanding. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Great, great. Thank you so much for all of your time. I mean, it was been a fantastic discussion. I'll take maybe a 30 seconds to kind of summarize it. I mean, I know Rima is staring at me, but I'll try to summarize it and close it quickly. So just to summarize, we all kind of agree that the pandemic has fast forwarded from last 1.5 year, and digitization is something which we are all looking as even Mr. Vikas has mentioned. Integration is the key. From bringing everyone's on the same page, which Ajay has mentioned. So that is something really interesting that we have to do for. And India is also working for logistics from digitization perspective, something new to and good to hear. And robotics, which would be kind of add value to be in linear form or an autonomous side or a fulfillment automation side, which Pranav has mentioned, that is going to come up. Online and offline business, which Swami was mentioning, companies have to look at it both from a business expansion point of view, not just focus on the diversity on the e-com side. So the new age startups is something which are investing heavily on the technology and the automation side, and where we see that that is going to be a key breaker for us to bring in a lot of automation and digitization by 2030 is what we see. And I'll close up now. I mean, since we have limited time, so I'll not take any questions from audiences. I'll pass it back to Rima team to close up.
Great, great. Thank you, speakers, for sharing your thoughts. And it was really a kickstart for the digital week. I'm sure today's takeaway will be very helpful for all of us, and we appreciate you being here. Now, I request everyone to join the exhibition where we have the best suppliers of the industry waiting for you. Enjoy networking and have a good business. Read Exhibitions and India Warehousing, thank you once again for joining us today. Have a good day and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.